I think even when you devote yourself to bettering, you have to realize that, it takes time to break the habit of being yourself. It takes time to change. And I know I don't like to talk about like time in regards to like our growth and our expression of it. But in a realistic sense, you know, who you are is a learned thing. It's about the way you've grown up, the way you've been raised, and all those things that contribute to the way you are now. I feel like everyone should have two selves. The first prescribed self, and that's stuff you get from your parents, your environment, your childhood, your growing up. You know, your traumas, your problems, your insecurities. That stuff, is inherent to your past, inherent to an unchanged you. And I think once you realize you have potential to change, all the responsibility falls on you. And that's not to say, be hard on yourself and be like, oh, I gotta change, I gotta change, I gotta change. But realize, areas where you can improve. I think that half the battle isn't changing, but taking the steps to do so. And I feel like I realized this recently because, you fall back into those loops. Everybody falls back into their sort of like former state at some point. And it's about having the discipline and the mentality and consciousness and presence enough to not go down those paths. But more often than not, I feel like most of us, we make the mistake of going back. And that's not necessarily a terrible thing, just a bad thing. I feel like part of acknowledging your growth and part of growing is the acknowledgement. Acknowledgement enough to not put yourself in situations that show yourself you haven't grown. And only put yourself in situations where you can see your growth. You are going to keep on being that same person if you keep on replicating the same events. If you keep dwelling in the past, if all your energy and attention is in the past, that's all that's going to be the past. And that's who you're going to be, your past self. I feel like as long as we allow our mind to hold on to these certain things, that's all our mind becomes. The mind is a sponge. We have to be careful what we allow it to consume because conscious becomes subconscious becomes us. I think we have to realize how important it is to be conscious of what we're conscious of. Or allowing the filter into our heads. And I've been trying to be very intentional with that recently in regards to everything I'm doing. Just getting back to that higher feeling of just gratitude with life. And, the second time doing it, second time following that, going all in type of mentality, it was more difficult. I feel like it was more difficult because I already had the information. It wasn't new to me. It wasn't something like that. It was something I had that I let go of. And this is my message, telling y'all to not forget yourself. Not necessarily your purpose, but not forget your intention. I feel like a lot of us do stuff for certain reasons, and sometimes we get caught up in so much in the action that we forget the reason we do it. Oh, I don't feel like working out, but you want to get in shape for this certain thing. Oh, I don't feel like studying, but I want to do good on this test. And it's not necessarily just about being goal-oriented, but being present enough to do it with that future gratitude in mind. And what I mean by future gratitude, I mean holding in your heart and in your mind the feeling that you would get from, accomplishing a task. I feel like sometimes, if not most times, you have to be grateful for things before you actually get them. It prepares you to, accept it into your character. And one, feel deserving. And two, not act out of character. Not act out of accordance to what yourself is. And, everybody's different. Sometimes people want to be humble. Sometimes people want to be arrogant. Regardless of which, it's important to be intentional and present with how you receive things. And the most important thing we have to be intentional with is how we receive ourselves. How you receive your day-to-day talking. How you receive the things you think about yourself. Whether or not you allow it to just be true. And sometimes, you have to hold fervently onto the idea that, who you are isn't solid. You have to hold on to the realization that, you're human. It's your first time here and you will make mistakes. But that's not to say that you dwell on them. Like I said in my last video, you learn the lesson and you keep moving forward. It's not about getting back. It's about getting forward, not getting back to your previous self. Because change takes time. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, and sometimes we recognize one trough as the end point. When in reality is you're gonna have one more down and you can go even higher. I think the only thing that limits us really is ourselves. And I get that sometimes it's very difficult to be disciplined. And in my experience, sometimes it is, but it's not necessarily about its difficulty. It's about your constant attention and pressure onto it. I feel like it's a muscle that we flex. Something we allow ourselves to do, something we bring forth. And as present as I've been aspiring to be, I'm realizing more and more that I'm not that present. But that's not to say that I'm not trying to be present. It's to say that oftentimes our mind slips into things. We start becoming what we're doing rather than being a person within it. And while that's not a bad thing, I feel like living your life sort of on that autopilot mode leads you to not pick up on certain things that make life beautiful. Like, you're not going to notice the way the grass looks today, or the way the sun is shining, or how the heat feels on your skin. You may not notice those subtle things that allow you to keep vesting that motivation, intention, and discipline into yourself. Because it's not, you can't be completely void of some stimulus to be disciplined. I feel like in some senses you have to absorb. You have to get in order to give to yourself. And when I say get, I don't necessarily mean from other people. I mean get stuff from anything around you. Maybe you read a book, maybe you write. But in that, you get parts of yourself. You get to see your reaction. You get to see how you relate to that certain something. And when I say change takes time, I don't necessarily mean be patient. I mean be present. Like I said in my last video, it's not necessarily about waiting on change to happen, but being present enough to realize that you're changing and realize the things that can help you change. Sometimes you have to put yourself in discomfort in order to just improve upon what your character is, improve upon who you are, because your definition is given by you. Regardless of what you think, it's given by you. Your parents can tell you a certain way, your friends can tell you a certain way, but as long as you accept it, that's you. Epictetus once had a quote. He said, "No person can hurt you unless you give them the power to," or something like that. I wish I had the direct quote. I just wrote it today, but yeah, like, you have to realize that we give circumstances, and we give events the freedom to sort of poke at our character. And it's not about building up a wall to make sure you're not pokeable. It's about making yourself so malleable that even when they poke you, they kind of go right through. It doesn't affect you anymore. Because who you are is sort of beyond connotation, and it's beyond comparison. It's beyond, everything you allow it to restrict it, or allow to restrict it. In saying that the self is infinite, I don't necessarily mean like you can just go out and walk out one day and be some new person. I'm saying there's no limit to the way you can find out more about yourself. There's no limit to, your expression. There's no limit to the things you can learn. And once I came to this realization, once I sort of sat down and sat still for a little bit, you realize that situations don't have to be make or break. You have to learn how to find a positive in almost everything you do. The world's not going to always give you a inkling of light. But sometimes you may see a little, reflection of it. And you have to be appreciative of what that is. Be appreciative of, any small instantiation you get. Because I feel like we live in such a world of comparison that, one good and the other good's here. A lower good and a higher good. And, if we've had that higher good, that lower good's not going to feel as good. I don't know, I'm saying good a lot, but I feel like it's a good analogy. I feel like our comparison has stripped us of our gratitude in many ways. Sometimes you have to be happy all times you have to be happy for the small little gifts you get, and I feel like the biggest gift that we have that we undermine is ourselves. We have to realize that You have this self. You are somebody in your circle. You are somebody who takes care. You are somebody you can interact with. Not saying talk to yourself, but saying that, you can relate to yourself. You can see things in the world and be like, oh, I like that for me. Oh, I like the way I am. Oh, I like the way I do this. And I've been trying to get back to doing that. Sort of looking at myself from a third person perspective, just to bolster up the image I'm trying to give myself, trying to understand with myself. Because I feel like a lot of times, since we understand our inner workings, since we understand our insecurities and traumas and problems, we often see that in our external. We see that in our expression. We see that in everything, but other people don't. And what I'm saying is not necessarily being fake, but being real. Understanding that, how you are. If you're beautiful one day, you're beautiful every day, regardless of how you feel. And it's about understanding that. Understanding that these shifts in our mood, these shifts in our vibration, these shifts in anything that we do is caused by something internal, and it's projected outward. And it's about being intentional and present enough to realize when you're projecting, to realize when something's not coming from you, but coming from something beyond you, coming from something that's pulling your strings, whether that be a problem, a person, or a situation. I think in all things we need to be intentional. All things we have to realize that, change is our constant state. You change every second, but that's still a matter of time. It takes a little bit to get a lot. And when I'm saying that, I mean, sometimes you have to put in that conscious effort to get better. You have to choose to get better. But I feel like the rewards are far beyond, any effort we can put in. That's not to say, you have to do a little, but that's to say, stay on track. I feel like that's one of the most important lessons I've learned in my journey is to stay on track, to keep going. Like those things that make you feel like yourself, keep finding them. Keep expanding that. Keep expanding your definition of yourself. Broaden it. And understand that there doesn't have to be an end to you. As physical, as tangible as I am, I'm a concept. We are all concepts, we're all ideas. And you have to be the one to determine what your idea, what your concept is. And you have ample time and ample opportunity to do so. I feel like a lot of us put ourselves on a time crunch, and that's why I say change takes time, because it's not something that's going to happen overnight for some people, but some people it might. But it's not about the comparison. It's about the realization that your journey is your own, and you have to be able to write your own story. That's not to say you rush the finish of a chapter. That's to say you take your time to write out the story exactly how it goes. Sometimes you want to write in this, sometimes you want to write in that, and sometimes you have to decide which one is best for you. Sometimes you have to decide what's going to keep the story going along. Whether you're making it a tragedy or whether you're making it, a good ending or something like that. Making sure you're not limiting yourself in regards to your expression and your perception. A man sees in a world he cares in his heart. And you see yourself in the same light. Make sure what you have going on inside. Make sure when you look at yourself outside, you're at least telling yourself something nice about yourself. I don't think we understand how important it is to give that to yourself. Like I said, the universe gives you certain things. The world, the God, whatever you want to qualify it as. It gives you certain things. But what it doesn't give to you, you have to give to yourself. And if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. Much appreciated. If you're watching this, I definitely streamed last night. Man, I gotta stop telling y'all days after. But regardless, usually I try to stream in between my uploading days. That's probably gonna be the most convenient spot for me, convenient time. So tune into those whenever you get the chance. If you made it this far in the video, I don't know if I said thank you. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate all the love and support I'm getting. It's actually astronomical. It's actually crazy, but I'm happy I have some type of impact in y'all. if they don't impact you, I promise you these videos impact me as well. So keep being y'all, keep being great. And before I forget, there's one more